Alright, so we're going to look at doing this on Excel. So the easiest way to do that is first on your Excel spreadsheet, we're going to first make a scatter plot for this data. To do that, we're going to highlight what we have. We're going to highlight it with clicking in the cell, highlight the numbers, go into insert scatter, and you'll get your scatter plot there. On your scatter plot, we're going to click the little chart elements icon, go into trend line, click more options. We want a linear trend line, and we're going to put in our display equation and our values. And you should see that pop up on your graph. There it is there. On your assessment, you should be able to show how this equation is derived. And this is what we're going to use Excel data to work out. So here on, I've put all those elements together. Now we're going to get our values. So first of all, R value. Your R value is going to be the square root of your R squared value. So we're going to take the square root, which is SQRT of 0.3304. That gives you 0.57. Next, we need to work out our averages for X and Y. So if I slide across, history will be my X column, geography will be my Y column. So starting off with standard deviation, you're going to type in standard STDEV for standard deviation. And we're going to highlight our X values, close the bracket, hit enter. We're going to do the same process for Y values. So equals STDEV for standard deviation, double click that. We're going to highlight our Y values, close the bracket, and hit equals. Again, we're going to do the same process, but this time for average. So I'm going to start typing in the word average. That first function, we're going to take our X values for average of X, close the bracket, hit enter. For our Y values, take the average again, highlight your Y value, close the bracket, hit enter. By this point, you should only have B and A left. So let's start with B. To get your B value, we take the R value we found out and we multiply it by the standard deviation of Y divided by the standard deviation of X. Whoops, I need the numbers though. So you need that formula there, and we're going to hit enter. Now, if we notice here, we've got the three decimal places, 4 decimal places, 0.4843. And when we look at our graph here, our B value here is the same number, which means we've done this correctly. Which means we only have A to find. To find your A value, we're going to type in equals. A will be the average of Y. So F7 subtract, open bracket, your B value. So F2 multiplied by your average of X. That's the formula you need. Once you've got all that, hit enter, and you should get 33.49. 33.49 is close to two decimal places. Is the same as what we have on this graph equation here. So we've done that correctly. So if we were to write it out as an equation, you would have Y equals to 2 decimal places 0.48x plus 33.49. And that's the equation of the graph there. I'm going to do the same thing for the next one below. So again, first step, take that highlighted, go up to insert, come down to insert scatter, and we click our first option. Next we go to here, trend line, more options, and we want a linear trend and display the equation and the R squared value on our graph. I'm just going to move this over here. Alright, first thing we notice, this is a negative trend line, and that means our gradient is going to be a negative number, which is our B value here. So when we get a B value, we need to make sure we make it negative, but I'll get to that in a second. So again, going through this process, our value is, we're going to take the square root of our R squared value, which is 0.8446. It equals there. Then we're going to find standard deviation of x and y. So again, STDEV for standard deviation. And we're going to highlight temperature as our x value. It equals, for standard deviation of y, again, STDEV for standard deviation. And then highlight our y values and close the bracket, hit enter. Your average of x and y, again, type in average, that first function, and then highlight your x values, which is temperature, close the bracket, hit enter. For our y values, we want average again, highlight number at cinema, and we're going to close it in a bracket, hit enter. Our B value is going to be our R value multiplied by, open bracket, standard deviation of y divided by standard deviation of x. So you should get that form, that equation there, hit enter. Alright, you'll notice here that here on our graph we've got a negative gradient. Here for our gradient for B, we got a positive. Excel cannot work out if a gradient is positive or negative, it just spits out a number. So it then comes to us to recognize that this is a negative gradient and just right next to it, write our gradient as 16.40, close to 2 decimal places. A equals our average of y, take away the B value, which we made a negative, so we got to take negative 16.4 multiplied by our average of x, close the bracket, and equals. You'll notice the B value is the same as the B value on the graph, and the A value here is the same as the A value on the graph, which means we've done it correctly.